The deepest truths are rarely shouted. They're whispered, when the room is quiet enough to hear them. You ever wonder why some people never say, "I love you," but still make you feel like you're everything? That's because emotional investment doesn't always come dressed in roses or fireworks. Sometimes it shows up wearing everyday clothes, soft words, late-night texts, and quiet check-ins that most folks miss because they're looking for the loud stuff. My friends, not every emotional connection announces itself with confetti. Most of the time, it arrives like a gentle tide, silent, persistent, and soul-deep. Now, imagine this. You're walking through a library and someone slips a tiny note into your hand. No grand speech, no dramatic music, just a few words scribbled in quiet handwriting. "I hope you're okay." At first, it doesn't hit, but later that night alone, you realize those 5 words meant more than an entire paragraph from someone else. Why? Because the person saying them didn't owe you anything, but they still reached out. That, my friends, is emotional investment in disguise. See, most people are waiting for love to look like the movies, but real connection, it lives in the unsaid. It hides in phrases like, "Did you eat today?" or "Text me when you get home." These aren't just pleasantries, they're coded confessions. Because when someone cares about your safety, your peace, your mind, even after conflict, that's not casual. That's someone choosing you in quiet ways, over and over. But here's the lie society sold us. If they don't say it loud, they don't mean it. Nonsense. Some of the most powerful feelings are the ones people struggle to say. They're afraid, unsure, unhealed, but still, they try. And when they do, they speak in symbols, not slogans. They offer presence instead of promises. They remember things you forgot you even said. They care about your silence as much as your words. Folks, emotional investment isn't about how often they say, "I miss you." It's about how often they show up without needing to be asked. It's in the way they lean in when you talk, the way they listen, the way they bring up that one detail you thought went unnoticed. It's not about how loud they are, it's about how consistent they are. Think about it. Have you ever had someone remember something small you mentioned weeks ago? A song, a story, a scar. That's not coincidence. That's emotional memory. That's the heart holding onto your echo. When someone stores parts of you inside them, they've already opened a space where you live rent-free. That's not flirtation. That's foundation. So today, we're going to decode those hidden moments, the little things they say when they're not trying to impress you, but can't help caring, because those are the real signs they're emotionally invested. If you've missed them before, that's okay. We're going to bring light to what's been overlooked, and if you recognize these signs in someone right now, you'll start to see their words in a whole new way. Drop this in the comments right now. I see beyond words. Let the world know you're not the kind of person who needs grand gestures to feel loved. You've trained your eyes for the subtle truth. And if this already feels like something you needed to hear, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because we're just getting started. And remember this, stay grounded, stay perceptive, stay awake. Number 1. I just wanted to make sure you got home safe. Care doesn't always sound like poetry. Sometimes it sounds like a simple check-in, wrapped in concern, spoken in passing, but echoing louder than love songs. Let's break the illusion, my friends. Because that one sentence, "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe," might be the clearest signal they're emotionally invested in you, and most people don't even see it. It doesn't come with a dramatic pause. It's not shouted from the rooftops. It slips into your inbox, quietly, softly. But if you look close enough, it's a whisper of affection that carries weight. Deep weight. That line. That's not just about distance or directions. That's about value. It's someone making sure the world didn't swallow you on your way home. Because somewhere inside them, they would feel the ache if something did. Now ask yourself this, How many people have actually done that for you? And out of those few, how many did it when it wasn't expected? No agenda, no flirting, no performance, just a pure instinct to care. If it's rare, it should be. Because emotional investment is rare. And when it usually comes dressed like this. Small acts, not fireworks. And that's why most people miss it. They've been trained to believe love must be loud to be real. But here's what most don't realize. That message, "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe," is a protector's voice. It's the quiet, stoic, guardian energy. It's someone saying, "You matter enough for me to stay mentally connected, even after you physically left." That's a different level of care. It's not about territory or control. It's about responsibility, not in a forced way, but in a chosen one. Because you don't check on what you don't value. And they're not checking to gain your attention. They're checking because your well-being touches their peace. Let me paint a metaphor for you. Imagine two candles burning in different rooms. Most of the day they don't see each other, but every so often one flickers, just to make sure the other still glows. That flicker is that late-night text, that quiet question, that check-in. It's their way of saying, "You're not alone in the dark." But here's where the fear creeps in. Some of you might ask, what if they're just being polite? What if I'm reading too much into it? What if I get my hopes up and it means nothing? And I get it. You've been burned before. You've seen words used as bait, not bridges. You've been conditioned to doubt kindness, to mistrust softness, to label care as weakness, or worse, manipulation. But that's the wound talking. That's not your wisdom. Because here's the truth most don't want to admit. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't that they don't care. It's that they actually do, and you're terrified of what that might require from you in return. Because to receive care, real care, means lowering the armor. It means accepting that someone is watching over you, even in your absence. And if you've spent years being your own protector, that level of closeness can feel threatening. You start thinking, what do they want from me? Why would someone care about me like this? What if I let them in and they leave anyway? That, right there, is the battle between your past wounds and your present worth. But let me break the lie for you. Not everyone who checks in has a hidden motive. Some people are built differently. They don't love to trap. They love to build. And when they say, "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe," they're building a bridge to you, one small brick at a time. No fanfare, no demand, just consistency. Because to them, your peace matters. And folks, that's not a line you hear from someone who's only halfway in. That's the voice of someone standing watch, silently, stoically, hoping the world hasn't harmed you in the places you don't talk about. And yes, it can be difficult to trust it, especially if you've been taught that real feelings only come in big, dramatic gestures. But emotional investment rarely wears a costume. It shows up in the ordinary, the routine, the forgotten. It checks in when the party's over. It's the follow-up. It's the presence after presence. That's what this sentence really means. They didn't move on when you walked away. Their attention stayed. And in today's world, that's sacred, because we're surrounded by people who disappear after the good times, people who only show up when it's convenient, people who ghost, vanish, breadcrumb. So when someone stays in your orbit, even when they have no obligation to, it means something. And if they're checking on your safety, it's not just about your body, it's about your soul. It's their way of saying, "I need to know you're okay, even if I can't be there to make it okay." That is emotional responsibility. And when someone gives you that, you don't ignore it, you honor it. Because whether or not they say it outright, they're speaking a deeper language, the kind that doesn't need translation. The kind you feel in your chest, not just your ears. And if you can recognize it, if you can respond with appreciation instead of suspicion, you're already starting to build something most people never experience, emotional security that doesn't feel like a trap. So, if you've received that message recently, or ever, take a moment to ask yourself, why did it hit different? Maybe because it wasn't just a sentence. It was a signal, a code, a truth dressed in simple words. Drop this in the comments if you feel it. I value quiet care. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're someone who doesn't need big performances to feel loved. You're fluent in the language of small things. And if this is already speaking to something you've lived through, stick with me. Because what's coming next will open your eyes even more. We're just getting started decoding the signs most people never notice. Number 2. I've never told anyone this before, but the moment someone starts with that line, pause. You're no longer in a regular conversation. You've just been invited into a sacred space, unfiltered, unscripted, and incredibly fragile. This isn't just a phrase. This is a threshold, a bridge between who they appear to be and who they actually are. Because when someone says, I've never told anyone this before, what they're really saying is, I've carried this for years, and for some reason, with you, I want to set it down. And that, folks, is emotional investment in its purest form. Now let's get one thing straight. It's not easy for anyone to say those words, especially in a world where we've all been trained to filter, polish, perform, where vulnerability is often seen as ammunition, where trust is currency and betrayal comes cheap. So when someone opens up to you like that, don't just hear the words, feel the risk, feel the weight, because behind that phrase is a history of silence, of pain, of carefully built walls now cracking just enough to let you in. Imagine someone holding a glass jar they've sealed tight for years. Inside, there's something they've never shown anyone, an old wound, a fear, a truth. And then, one day, they look at you and twist the lid open. That's what I've never told anyone this before really is. It's not casual. It's not flirty. It's sacred. You've become the chosen space where their truth can finally breathe. And still, some of you will hear that and wonder, why me? Why now? That fear creeps in again. Maybe you think you're not worthy of that kind of honesty. Maybe you're afraid you won't know how to respond. Maybe you've been told before you're too sensitive, so now you question your ability to hold someone else's emotions. But let me tell you something, brother. That fear, it's not proof that you're not ready. It's proof that you care. And that's the first requirement for emotional safety. Because the truth is, when someone shares something they've never said aloud, they're not expecting you to fix it. They're not handing you a problem to solve. They're handing you a piece of themselves, not for judgment, not for repair, just to be seen, to be known, to no longer feel alone with it. And when you respond with presence, not panic, not pity, just presence, you become more than a person. You become a sanctuary. But why is this so difficult for people to say? Why does it take months, sometimes years, for someone to speak those words? It's because every past betrayal, every time someone was vulnerable and got burned, left a scar. And the mind remembers, the body remembers, and so we all learn to protect what's most sacred inside us. We become selective, cautious, guarded, until someone comes along who feels different, someone who doesn't rush, who doesn't interrupt, who doesn't make it about themselves. That's when it happens. That's when the walls finally tremble. So if someone ever tells you something they've never told anyone, recognize the miracle in that, because you've just been trusted with something priceless, their truth, their unedited version. And whether it's about a childhood moment that shaped them, a fear that keeps them up at night, or a past hurt they've never processed, when they tell you, you are witnessing something sacred. You are being asked silently, can I be safe with you? And what you do next, that's where everything is decided. If you rush it, mock it, minimize it, you prove you were never ready. But if you sit there, breathe, listen, if you offer nothing but your presence, you become unforgettable. Because we don't remember people by how flashy they were. We remember them by how safe we felt with them, and safety? That's the rarest kind of love there is. My friends, vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. And when someone chooses to be vulnerable with you, that means you've shown up in a way that made them believe maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time they won't regret opening up. Don't waste that. Don't run from that. Rise into it. Because when someone says, "I've never told anyone this before," they're not just sharing information. They're inviting you into their soul. And if you can hold that gently, with strength, you give them something they may have never had before. Proof that their truth didn't scare someone away. Drop this in the comments right now. I am a safe space. Say it to yourself. Say it out loud. Say it to the world. Let people know you're not the kind of person who needs perfection. You're the kind of person who honors honesty, even when it's messy. And if this hit you somewhere deep, stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going even further. The next sign of emotional investment isn't about what they confess, it's about what they let you see when their guard slips. Number 3. You don't have to go if you don't want to. The deepest kind of love doesn't chain you, it frees you. And if someone is willing to let you choose, they've already chosen you in their heart. At first glance, this line might seem small, simple, almost forgettable, but don't let its softness fool you. You don't have to go if you don't want to is not just a casual offer, it's emotional investment spoken in the language of freedom. It's one of the clearest signs that someone cares about you deeply, and they're willing to risk being alone so you never feel trapped. See, when someone says that, they're not begging, they're not pleading, they're doing something much harder. They're letting you decide. No guilt, no pressure, just space. And that kind of space is sacred. Because in relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or somewhere in between, most people try to hold on tighter when they feel someone's slipping. They panic, they grasp, they demand answers, time, presence. But emotional maturity, emotional investment, that sounds like this. You don't have to stay, but I'd love it if you did. That's not control. That's courage. And here's what most people miss. This phrase isn't about the moment. It's about what lives underneath it. It's about trust. Because they're saying, I trust you enough to choose me on your own. No manipulation, no subtle shaming, just open hands and honest intentions. And that kind of energy? That's rare. That's what real connection is made of. Now, let's go deeper. Why is this so powerful? Because it touches a primal fear most of us carry, the fear of being held somewhere we no longer feel free. And for those of us who've ever been in relationships where love felt like a leash, or worse, a cage, this phrase is healing. It's a salve for old wounds. Because when someone gives you that kind of choice, they're saying, you don't owe me your time. I just value it. It reminds me of a metaphor. Picture a bird resting on an open palm. No strings, no cage, just trust. The bird stays, not because it has to, but because it feels safe there. That's what this phrase is. It's the open hand. It's saying, I'll never clip your wings to make you stay. If you're here, I want it to be because you want to be. And let's be honest, it's terrifying to offer someone that kind of freedom when you care. Because the moment you say you don't have to go, you risk them walking away. You risk being left in silence. You risk the very thing you're afraid of. But here's the twist. Only those who are truly emotionally invested can say it and mean it. Because they know real love isn't about keeping, it's about honoring. Some of you might ask, but doesn't that make me weak? Won't they leave if I don't hold on tighter? And those are valid fears, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that love is a power struggle, that the one who cares less wins. But that belief? That's a lie dressed as wisdom. And it's robbed countless people of peace, of closeness, of the love they deserved. Because emotional power isn't about detachment. It's about strength through surrender. It's about knowing that you're worthy even if they leave. It's about standing in your value, not forcing them to stay, but knowing if they do, it's real. That's what "you don't have to go" really is. It's not weakness, it's silent confidence. It's the energy of someone who knows their worth and still chooses softness. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a moment where you didn't know what to do, didn't know if you should stay or leave, and someone just looked at you and said, "Whatever you decide, I'll understand"? That moment stays with you. Because in a world full of people trying to push and pull and persuade, someone who lets you breathe feels like oxygen. And when they say, "You don't have to go," they're saying, "I'm not going to guilt you into choosing me." They're removing the pressure. And that, ironically, is what pulls you closer, because nothing feels safer than someone who wants you to stay but doesn't make it a condition of their worth. That's peace. That's power. So if you've ever heard someone say those words to you and you didn't know how to respond, now you do. You honor it. You slow down. You realize that in that one sentence, they revealed more of their heart than most people do in 1,000. They weren't just giving you a choice. They were showing you the depth of their emotional maturity. They were saying, "I care enough about you to let you walk away, and I'll still be okay. But I hope you stay." Drop this in the comments. Freedom is love. Let them know, let the world know, that you're not the kind of person who needs to chain someone down to feel safe. You're the kind who builds something so real they won't want to leave. And if this opened your eyes, stick around, because what's coming next, it'll show you what it means when they start connecting dots, not just about who you are, but what you mean to them. Number 4. Did you eat today? Sometimes the smallest questions are love letters in disguise. They don't scream affection, but they carry the weight of someone who's been thinking about your survival when you weren't. It's easy to overlook this one. It doesn't sound romantic. It's not poetic. It's not the stuff songs are written about. But that's exactly why it matters. "Did you eat today?" is one of the purest, rawest, and most underrated signs of emotional investment. It may not come with roses or fancy plans, but it comes with care, and not just any care. This is primal, foundational. It's someone checking on your most basic need, because in their world, your well-being matters. Now pause for a second. How many people in your life actually ask you this? Not because it's polite, not because it's routine, but because they genuinely care if you're okay, physically, emotionally, mentally, because they know that when life gets heavy, the first thing to slip through the cracks isn't always your ambition or your goals. It's your self-care, your appetite, your energy, your will to do something as basic as eating. And that one question, it's someone watching the cracks before you even realize they're forming. See, when someone asks, "Did you eat today?" they're not just checking on your stomach, they're checking on your soul. They're saying, "I know life gets overwhelming, and I want to make sure you're not disappearing in the chaos." Because people who've gone through it, who've felt that weight, that fog, that mental exhaustion, they know how easy it is to neglect yourself when you're hurting, grinding, numbing, surviving. So when they ask, it's more than a question. It's presence. It's care. It's someone stepping into your world and saying, "You don't have to handle it all alone." Think of it like this. Imagine being out at sea, struggling to stay afloat, and then, without fanfare, without a rescue crew, someone throws you a life ring, not because you asked, not because you screamed, but because they noticed. That's what this question is, a life ring. Quiet, intentional, life-giving. But here's where it gets deep. For many of us, receiving that kind of care feels foreign, even uncomfortable. Why? Because we've been taught that love has to be earned through performance, that someone should only check on us if we've been good, if we've done enough, if we've deserved it. So when someone shows up without being asked, without you doing anything to provoke it, you second-guess it. You think, why would they care? What do they want? And that right there, that resistance, isn't your intuition. That's your past talking. That's your old wiring trying to protect you from a truth it never learned how to receive. You are worthy of care, even when you're quiet, even when you're messy, even when you don't ask for it. And that's the beautiful thing about this question. It doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't ask you to perform. It just reminds you, someone's thinking about you in the background. They don't need attention. They don't need credit. They just need to know you're taking care of yourself. Or, if you're not, maybe they can help. That's love in its most grounded form. Stoic, subtle, steady. It reminds me of something I once read. The people who feed you when you're too tired to cook for yourself, they're the ones who've tasted hunger. And the ones who ask if you've eaten. They've been there. They know the silence of suffering. And they want to be the reason you don't stay in it alone. And sometimes they're not just asking about food, they're asking about your life. Did you eat today? Can mean, are you still trying? Did you take a moment for yourself? Did you remember that you matter? It's someone reaching out in the only way they know how, softly, through the cracks. So don't dismiss it. Don't minimize it. Don't overlook the person who shows up in the simplest ways. They're often the ones whose love runs the deepest, because they're not trying to impress you, they're trying to nourish you in the quiet, essential ways that last long after flowers fade and compliments stop. And if someone has ever asked you that, especially when you were too tired to remember the answer, know this: they saw you. Not the version you show the world, not the mask. They saw the tired parts, the human parts, and they still chose to care. Drop this in the comments right now. I recognize real care, because that's what this journey is about. Learning to see what most people miss. Choosing to be the kind of person who values presence over performance. And if this stirred something in you, stay close, because the next sign we're diving into, it's even quieter. It's what happens when they start to carry you in the back of their mind, even when you're not around. Number 5. This reminded me of you. We don't remember people randomly. The heart stores what the mind tries to forget. And when someone says, "This reminded me of you," what they're really saying is, "You live rent-free in the quiet spaces of my life." It sounds harmless at first, sweet, maybe even casual. But don't let that softness deceive you. When someone says, "This reminded me of you," they're revealing something much deeper than most people catch. It's not just about a meme, a song, a place, or a moment. It's about memory, association, emotional imprint. It means you're not just a passing thought. You're part of their internal world, woven into the soundtrack of their everyday life. Let that sink in. Because people don't connect things to you unless something inside them already misses you, feels you, or cherishes something about you. When they see a sunset and it triggers a memory of you. When they hear a joke and instantly think of your laugh. When they pass by a bookstore and remember that time you told them your favorite author. These aren't coincidences, they're echoes of emotional investment. It's like this. Imagine you drop a stone into still water. The ripples spread out slowly, quietly, but they last. That's you. You're the ripple in their thoughts. You've become part of the way they see the world. And so when something reminds them of you, it's because you never really left their mental orbit in the first place. You're orbiting silently, emotionally gravitational. And here's the thing. They don't have to tell you. Most people don't. Most people keep those little reminders to themselves. They suppress it, they push it down. But when someone chooses to share it with you, to say, "This made me think of you," they're opening a window into how often you cross their heart. They're saying, "You live in me. Even when I don't mean to carry you, you show up." That's not casual. That's not surface level. That's intimacy in its softest form. But here's where fear comes in. Some of you might feel confused when you hear that. maybe even suspicious. You might think, are they just being polite? Or worse, are they playing with me? Because we've all met people who use sweetness as a strategy, who drop lines like, "This reminded me of you," just to keep a hook in your heart. And that fear is valid. But here's how you know the difference. It's in the consistency. If someone only shows up with flattery but disappears when things get real, that's not investment. That's control. But if they show up gently, steadily, sharing little reminders of how you live in their thoughts, that's someone who's emotionally rooted. Because emotional investment isn't loud. It's not about dramatic confessions or daily check-ins. It's about who they bring into their inner world when no one's watching. If you're the one they think of when they hear a certain lyric, or when they see something beautiful, or when they stumble upon something strange and instantly wish you were there to laugh about it with them, then you've already left your fingerprint on their world. Quietly, deeply. And sometimes this reminded me of you is their way of saying, I miss the version of myself I feel when I'm around you. Because that's the thing. When someone connects an external moment to you, they're not just remembering your face. They're remembering the feeling you gave them, the energy, the comfort, the laughter, the stillness, whatever it was, you mattered. And you still do. Let's be honest. How often do you think about someone throughout your day and never say anything? It happens all the time. We suppress, we scroll, we distract. But when someone chooses to share their thought of you, when they send that message, when they let you know they saw something and their first instinct was to share it with you, that's a beautiful risk. They're saying, I thought of you, and I wanted you to know. And that matters. Because we live in a world obsessed with attention, but starving for intention. This reminded me of you is a rare gem in that world. It's intentional, thoughtful, honest. It's them letting you know that you live in the silent spaces between their busyness. You're not forgotten, you're felt. Drop this in the comments right now. I honor emotional echoes. Let the world know you're the kind of soul who doesn't just need grand gestures. You recognize the beauty in the small, soft confessions. The kind that arrive through a phone screen at 3 p.m. on a random Tuesday with a photo, a song, a quote, and a line that says, "You popped into my head." Because that's how love grows. Not just through words, but through reminders, through presence, through emotional resonance that doesn't need explanation. And if you've ever received a message like that and brushed it off, go back, read it again, feel the weight of what it meant. Someone carried you into their day. And that kind of care, that's not something you chase. That's something you honor. Number 6, you don't have to answer right now. When someone gives you space instead of pressure, they're not pulling away. They're proving they respect the pace of your soul. This sentence right here? It's not laziness. It's not indifference. It's not someone brushing you off. It's actually one of the most beautiful signs that someone is emotionally invested, because they're not asking for immediate access to your thoughts. They're asking for honesty, and they're willing to wait for it. Most people don't get this. They think love is about urgency, about fast replies, instant answers, decisions on the spot. But the truth is, anything built to last doesn't need to be rushed. When someone says, you don't have to answer right now, they're telling you something sacred. I value your peace more than my need for clarity. Let's break that down. That phrase doesn't mean they're not interested. It means they're emotionally intelligent. They know that real connection doesn't happen when one person overwhelms the other. It happens when both feel safe to breathe, to process, to think, and to speak only when it's real. It reminds me of a metaphor. Imagine standing in a garden, planting a seed. You don't scream at the ground the next morning demanding a flower. You water it. You give it sun. You trust the soil. That's what this sentence is. It's someone saying, I've planted something with you, and I trust it will grow, even if today's not the day. Now think about how rare that kind of energy is. Most people rush conversations like they're running out of time. They want answers now, feelings now, definitions now. But someone who's emotionally invested in you, not just the outcome, they'll let you move at your own rhythm. They're not trying to corner you into clarity. They're trying to protect the part of you that needs safety to open up. Because, let's be honest, how many times have you felt pressured to give an answer you weren't ready to speak? How many times have you nodded when your heart wasn't sure, just to avoid disappointing someone? And how did that leave you feeling? Rushed, exhausted, disconnected from your own truth. That's the damage pressure does. It makes people choose silence, fake answers, or worse, shut down completely. But someone who says, you don't have to answer right now, they're doing the opposite. They're giving you time, not because they're disengaged, but because they want your truth, not your performance. That's someone who's not just looking for a response, they're looking for you. And here's the deeper layer. They're not trying to control the moment. They're surrendering to it. That's courage. That's love without a leash. Because anyone can demand attention, but few can hold space for you without needing to fill it. This line also reveals something else. They've done some inner work. They've likely been the one who was rushed before, the one who needed space and didn't get it. And now, with you, they want to break that cycle. They want to do it differently. They want this connection to breathe, not break under the weight of rushed emotions. And sure, it might scare you a little. You might think, what if I take too long? What if they lose interest? That's the trauma talking. That's the part of you still healing from people who only loved you when it was easy or immediate. But this person, they're showing you something different. They're saying, take your time. I'm not going anywhere just because you need a moment. That's rare, that's mature, that's safe. So if you've ever heard that sentence before, really heard it, don't take it lightly. That was someone giving you emotional oxygen. That was someone saying your pace is valid, your timing is respected, and your no is just as important as your yes. It's in these quiet moments where trust is built, where intimacy deepens, where the walls come down, not because they were knocked over, but because they were finally given time to melt. Drop this in the comments right now. I move with peace, because you're not here to rush, to chase, to perform. You're here to build something real, and real things take time. If you're someone who values that kind of depth, let the world know. Let them know you're the kind of soul who gives people space and who honors it when they give it to you. And if this resonated, if you've ever been on the receiving end of patience, or if you've learned to give it yourself, then stay with me. Because the next sign we're diving into, it's when they not only remember what you say, but they carry it with them long after the conversation is over. Number 7. I was just thinking about what you said. When someone remembers your words long after you've said them, they're not just listening, they're carrying pieces of you in their mind. This one hits different, because most people hear you, but they don't hold you. They nod, they react, they keep the conversation moving. But when someone reaches out and says, I was just thinking about what you said, they're doing something sacred. They're revisiting your soul. They're showing you that your voice didn't vanish into the air. It echoed, it settled, it stayed. Let's be real. In a world obsessed with talking, it's rare to find someone who actually listens, not just listens to respond, but listens to understand, to absorb, to process. And when they bring your words back up, unprompted, days or even weeks later, that's emotional investment at its finest. That's someone who's not just in it for the moment, they're in it for the meaning. Because here's the thing, remembering is a form of love. When someone says, I've been thinking about what you said the other night, they're telling you, you matter enough to take up space in my head when you're not even around. That's not casual, that's not passive, that's presence. And presence, when someone's not physically there, that's powerful. Imagine someone sitting at a red light, headphones in, mind drifting, and suddenly your words show up. Something you said that made them question themselves, or smile, or feel seen. That moment right there, that's a window into their heart. Because they didn't choose to think about you. It just happened. Which means you've become part of their inner world. And still, some of you might downplay it. You might think, well, they probably overthink like I do. Or worse, maybe they're just being polite. But don't let your fear sabotage the truth. People don't randomly revisit words unless those words made impact. And most people barely remember what they had for lunch. So if they remember something you said last Tuesday under low lighting and soft music, that wasn't accidental. That was emotional gravity. That was resonance. It's like this. You dropped a pebble into the still waters of their mind, and the ripples haven't stopped yet. And let's flip it. Think about how many people you've forgotten, not because they were bad people, but because nothing they said ever stuck. Now think about the ones who linger in your head, who live in the echoes of past conversations. They didn't just say something, they left something behind, a phrase, a story, a feeling. That's the power of words when they come from a place of truth. And when someone reflects on what you've said, it's more than memory, it's honor. It means they believe your voice has value, that your perspective isn't something to scroll past or file away. It's something to revisit, to sit with, to learn from. That kind of emotional investment isn't loud or flashy. It's deep, slow burning, and rare. But why is it so rare? Because to really think about what someone said, you have to let it in. You have to let it challenge you, or soften you, or shift something inside you. And most people, they're too busy armoring up, too busy proving they're right. But someone who brings your words back to the table days later is showing you they're not afraid to feel what you said, to digest it, to let it shape them. That's not someone who's just playing a role. That's someone who sees you as a mirror and values what they see reflected back. So if someone says to you, "I've been thinking about what you said," pause. Feel that. Respond with more than a shrug, because that moment is a gift. It's a sign that your presence lingers, that your truth matters, that your connection has depth. Drop this in the comments. My words carry weight. Because they do. Because you deserve to be heard, remembered, felt. And if someone's thinking about your voice long after the conversation has ended, they're already more emotionally invested than they probably realize. And as we wrap this journey, let this be your reminder. Emotional investment isn't always loud. It's not always dressed in declarations or long love letters. Sometimes it's a simple sentence, a quiet moment, a photo, a question, a memory, a delay in response that respects your timing, or someone sitting alone days later, whispering your words back to themselves. So don't just chase the obvious signs. Train your heart to see the subtle ones, the sacred ones, the ones that don't sparkle, but they stay. And if this video opened your eyes, if it made you realize how often someone may have been showing care in ways you never noticed, then hit that like button. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to know their quiet love has power. And tell me in the comments which sign hit you hardest. Until next time.